story time about how I scammed my followers out of $20,000. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I repeat, this is not my story time. I started out as an influencer on Instagram a few years ago. A few of my posts went viral, and after a month I had 1 million followers. Suddenly I had so many brands reaching out to me. Some of the brands I had never heard of, so I didn't really answer back. But I did start working with some brands that I did know. The only problem was that they would only pay me about $70 to $100 per post. By the way, I had a lot of debt at the time, so only making that much was not working for me. I decided to ask for more money, but some of the brands just wouldn't pay it. So by the end of the first month, I had only made about $500. That was not enough to pay my rent, and I was not about to get a day job. I had 1 million followers on Instagram. I was a glorified influencer. So instead, I started reaching out to some of these brands that I had never heard of before. One of them was offering me $5,000 to post a link on my story for 3 days. Of course, I accepted. Part of me thought that it was a scam, but I didn't care at the time. I needed the money. After 3 days of posting the link, they paid me the $5,000. I was able to pay my rent, my car insurance, and my phone bill. But here's the thing. I started getting a bunch of DMs from my followers who were super angry. They were calling me a scammer and a bunch of other names. So I decided to do some investigating, and I found out that the whole thing was a scam. Part 2 of how I scammed my followers out of $20,000. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I was sending me on Instagram. When I started seeing all the angry messages from my followers, I asked them what was wrong. One girl sent me screenshots of all the stuff that she had bought with the link that I posted. She told me that she Googled the company and that it was a scam. So I decided not to reply back to her. I wrote to the company and told them that I was getting a lot of hate messages. But of course, the company ghosted me. I saw 5 other messages and they were all basically saying the same thing. That the website was a total scam and that they had purchased stuff off of it. But here's the thing. For the first time, I had money. So I decided to just ignore it, which I know is a bad thing, but it's also their fault for not doing their research. But I did learn my lesson. After that, I Googled every single company that ever reached out to me. But here's where it gets worse. 2 weeks later, I get another $5,000 check from the same company. But I was so happy. I deposited that check really fast. So here's what I had to do. I blocked every single person who told me that the website was a scam. And then I just tried to forget about it. I also had to delete all the hate comments. And a few weeks after that, I get another $5,000 check. I had $15,000 in the bank. Part 3 of how I scammed my followers out of $20,000. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sending me on Instagram. I had made $15,000 from all of the scams, but it didn't stop there. A few weeks later, I got another $5,000 check. So in total, I had $20,000. This was the most money I'd ever had in my life, and I was not about to send it back. But I was still getting a lot of hate on Instagram. I ended up blocking over 500 people. And then finally, the company reached out to me. I told them my followers were saying that they were scamming them, but the company made up some excuse saying that the shipments had been delayed and that my followers would receive all their purchases. Then they offered me another $5,000 to post a different link. And guess what? Of course I accepted. They offered me $7,000 this time. I knew very well that this was probably another scam, but I still accepted. A few days later, I posted the link, but the payment never came. I waited a few weeks before contacting the company, and they ghosted me. I wrote to them every single day, but I never got the $7,000. So guess what? I also got scammed too. It's been 2 years since that happened, and I don't feel bad about it. I now make a lot more money than $20,000, but we all start somewhere. Part of me does feel guilty for scamming everyone, so sometimes I think about possibly paying them back. And don't start trying to guess in the comments who I am. You will never guess. Or maybe you will. Whatever, I'm $20,000 richer. Bye.
Am I wrong for my response to my cousin's pregnancy announcement at my husband's goodbye party? My husband's getting deployed overseas very soon, and I decided to invite both families for a cookout/goodbye party for him before he leaves. My cousin and I aren't close. She married 3 times and has 2 kids. She divorced her first husband because he left work and became a stay-at-home parent, divorced her second one because he didn't do chores and kept working long hours. Now her current husband, Tom or Tommy, does nothing. In fact, she does everything for him while he just hangs out with friends and plays video games most of the time. My cousin's reasoning for choosing him is that he has so many other great features. I gotta say, he is handsome and he is one of the most gorgeous guys she's ever been with. But he's rude, loud, talks back, has awful sense of humor, and money has clearly stunted his growth mentality. On to the encounter. At the cookout, everyone was sitting after we ate, and my husband was giving a little speech about what he's been experiencing at the moment, as well as giving sincere goodbyes to his mom, dad, and little sister. He then talked about how much he'll miss our little ones. It was emotional until my cousin carelessly interrupted us and playfully said it wasn't like my husband was dying or isn't coming back in a few months. Then she said she had big news. Everyone looked at her as she smiled and said she was pregnant. In the past, she always interrupted things like my proposal and my baby shower to make her announcements. I got mad seeing the attention instantly go on her by getting hugs and congrats. My husband seemed irritated and got quiet. I just got up from my seat, feeling confused about how to react, and told my cousin, "Hey, listen, I know you're happy to be able to keep Tommy's sperm as pets, but this is a goodbye party for Kevin, so your happy news should be shared another time in another place." Families were split. Some were laughing and some got upset. My cousin, almost crying, silently left the yard and Aunt followed. I got nasty looks from my side of the family. Then both my mom and aunt berated me for my inappropriate reaction and my response and making such a disgusting comment about my cousin's pregnancy and humiliating her like that. I explained that this was yet another attempt from her to hijack another occasion I host, and I said this in the heat of the moment, but my aunt saw nothing wrong with sharing good news and demanded I apologize for ruining my cousin's moment and making her feel awful. I feel awful too and think I was insensitive with how I responded.
I'm 23. When I was 15, my dad died. My mom, 45, didn't wait too long to start over and moved her new partner in just 2 months later. My dad left everything to me and not a dime to her. They weren't married. My dad's will was so structured that she couldn't even challenge it, and she attempted to even ask me to pass over one of my properties to her to show my new dad that he was welcomed. I couldn't even if I wanted to, because my dad's will was specified that I must be 21 to have access to everything he left me. This dude has kids, 18 male and 19 female. Their ages now, and my mom prioritized them to keep him happy. I mean, she wasn't like abusive or neglectful, but she tended to favor them. They went on trips, and even if she didn't tell me not to go, she'd say something between the lines of, "Wouldn't you like to go to your grandparents? My dad's better." I mean, I'm not stupid, and I know that she didn't want me there. When I turned 17, she asked me to leave my own house because I kept fighting with her dude, and I also reminded him of whose house it was. When he wanted to play the man of the house, I also called him John Conroy. My grandparents told me to avoid the confrontation, so I went to live with them. My mom would visit me often and tell me how much she loved me, but that she needed to keep the peace at home. After college, I decided to check my properties and also the one that my mom was living at. I wanted to renovate it to rent it out since it's a good one and could help me afford my master's. I went there to inform my mom, but no one was there. Later, I found out they went on vacations. I called her, but she didn't answer, so I proceeded to change the locks, mainly to officially take possession. They arrived yesterday and couldn't get in. Of course, they called me, but I wasn't even in town. I went today because some renovation works will start in a few weeks. I was in the backyard and my mom came in furious, yelling at me saying how dare I do that. So we talked and I let them know that they have 2 weeks to leave. Her husband, an self-employed, was furious. My mom and her stepdaughter started crying because the girl is pregnant. I'm sorry, but I made up my mind. My mom's family is shaming me and calling me an a-hole.
I worry myself when I buy hot dogs from the gas station. I'm like, girl, are you okay? Because I will not get into my own bed unless I'm showered, wearing clean pajamas, and clean socks, okay? If I'm at a party and there's a bowl of chips or party mix, I will not touch it because in the words of Lorelai Gilmore, it's like eating out of a toilet bowl. If I'm going through a drive-thru to pick up my food and their hands brush mine as they're handing me my food in the drive-thru, I get annoyed and I sanitize my hands. Like, that sounded really stuck up, but I've been told by psychiatrists that I may have a few OCD tendencies, you know? But then I'll walk into a gas station and be like mystery meat that's been sitting in a public space for 9 hours where they have rats living in the bathroom? Yeah, sign me up.